How's Evan coming along?
Progressing well.
Yeah.
Obviously, you can see him back behind us here. All the steps that we need to take, like he's knocking them out and moving in the right direction.
Do you think he's going to be able to play at all in the preseason, or have you ruled that out?
We're hopeful. We have not ruled it out. We're hopeful that he will. Like how these go, it's always tomorrow, and how it responded to the day before. But we have not ruled him out from playing in a preseason game.
How about Dylan?
Dylan will probably be out for preseason. If things progress the way that they are now, something magical happens, maybe he comes back, but my assumption is he'll be out for preseason. Kevin practiced today, yeah.
How about Dean?
Dean did not practice today. He stepped on somebody's foot. It's an ankle thing as well.
You've been talking about guys getting into the paint and looking for drive and kick opportunities. Is that something that you feel like has been natural, or is that something that you've had to urge the guys to do?
It's been natural. I think our group of guys who are penetrators have really good vision, and they've seen traffic a lot before. You think about like the Donovans and Dariuses and Karras, like people have shifted their defenses to keep them out of the paint, so they know where their outlets are on the backside. So I think, for those guys, it is natural. You think about some of the passes that Jetty's made cross court, Lamar made one, last night. So I think our guys have a pretty good idea of it, and it's coming easy to them. We just have to, get the ball moving a little bit more to start those initial actions.
Darius mentioned that he was watching this film of Donovan, Utah, stuff. To try to figure out just where he likes the ball, his spots. Is that something that he does, with coaches, does his own, and how do you see that previously?
I think, him and JJ, work extremely well together. They study together. But I think what it is, again, we talk about the willingness to make something work and a willingness to help somebody besides yourself. And, to take time to watch another guy so that you can help him, speaks to Darius's character and leadership because he understands the value of it. So I think it definitely helps. Gives him a better understanding of where he can put him and where he can deliver the ball to him, and then what the floor should look like around him when he does have the ball.
What examples do you see when you're watching these games of him trying to do that out there?
Well, I think it's the sets that he calls. Like we've given them freedom here in this preseason to kind of orchestrate, play a little freely, but then when needed, call sets, and he's calling sets to put the ball in his hands, in places that he likes it.
Is there an emphasis on better screening after watching last?
It was execution overall. Again, they picked their pressure up, and I don't think we executed well under pressure. So I think today was mostly about execution, even through and versus pressure.
And then when you talk about helping on corner threes, what do you tell these guys when they're not over-helping?
Yeah, that is one of the things we try to take out of the game. But it was, to me, it was more about, hesitation. What we got really good at last year is just over and over and over again making the extra effort to get to shooters. And I didn't think we did a great job of that last night.
You said good.
Sorry.
You're okay.
We saw last year, obviously, how Jared and Darius played off one another. But how do you think Jared can play well with Donovan and just kind of how their skill sets fit together?
I think they fit well together. I think it's a similar combination to Darius. There's a different cadence and speed. So I think, our fives in particular, J.A., most of the time, has to figure out that speed that he plays at. Darius is more of a downhill guy. Donovan likes to use his size to hold guys off, so it's more of a patient role. So I think, him getting used to the cadence of the pick and roll. But, again, they're both going to draw a ton of attention. He just has to put himself in the right spot.
Does that allow you to do things a little bit differently on offense because you can use Darius and Donovan in different ways with Jared?
Yeah, it allows you to space differently. How you shift your offense while the pick and roll is happening. because of that different speed, you're allowed to do different things out of it for sure.
You said you wanted this to be a difficult camp and you wanted these guys to maybe experience a little adversity. I know through preseason and through 2 games, there's been some ebbs and flows. Would you say that they've maybe experienced some of that adversity?
Yeah. Again, you throw the injuries in, the rotation stuff in, like how difficult and, the conditioning stuff, all those things. I think they've seen it. I think they've weathered some better than others. But again, we are a work in progress. We're 2 preseason games in. With a pretty, new and interesting dynamic, and then mixing in the injuries. So, we're working to where we want to go, but it's going to take us time.
And with regards to the rotation, has Karras maybe emerged as maybe a front runner for that starting 3 position?
He's done a great job. So we'll keep going. We'll see.
Going back to the Utah thing, you're obviously not the Jazz. You have different personnel. How do you make sure that what you do with Donovan is you?
It's obviously most importantly, you stick true to the system. And we're not a call a play every single time down the floor team. So in that, it's like, how does the ball move? How do our bodies move? And how do we share the game? That's first and foremost. That's who we are. The Utah stuff is, hey, we want to call a set. Let's put him in a position where he's comfortable, right? But other than that, if you play basketball, and play it with no agenda, that's how we want to play, and I think he fits into that easily.
You would stress to us the importance of live game reps for you guys, and you have 2 games left in the season. Are you considering playing all your key guys both against Atlanta and Orlando to wrap things up?
We're still, again, figuring out injuries and things like that, but that will impact, what we do as well. If guys are able to come back, getting guys to play an opportunity with some of the other guys. If they're not, then maybe not. So we're still considering all those things. All right, appreciate you guys. Have a good one.
I'm a tip of the reason why I'm here,
All right, go ahead. Donovan, you and Darius sit in the locker room after these couple of games or talk after before practice. What are some of the areas that you guys talk about working on?
Kind of making the game easier. I know that sounds simple and kind of cliche, but I think it's how you go about it. I look at last night, for example. A team that switches 1 through 5. It's easy to turn it into an isolation game, and not for selfish reasons, but because we're both so good at being able to attack and create. It's a lot of work for each other, so kind of making it simple with each other that way. So kind of playing off of each other, where it's a small pick and roll, just driving to a simple kick, and then it's the second side, come back to DZ, and he goes. Then you look on the conversely on the defensive side, being able to support each other from the wing standpoint. We did a pretty good job in the first game. In the second game, I think we had some lapses, and that's to be expected. It's not, like I said, it's not going to be perfect, but for him and I, just continuing to have those conversations, and they're always positive, and I think that's the biggest thing, because they come from a place of wanting to see each other get better and grow.
He says if he's still watching film of you on the Utah days and seeing all right, I can see where this works here, it doesn't work. Can you tell that he's doing that?
Yeah, I think we had a conversation today just about what I'm used to as far as spacing wise and what he sees, and we are both saying the same thing, just in different languages. And I think you can see, him wanting to put me in different spots and vice versa, because we've seen each other play. We've seen it. I didn't know he was watching film of me, but I've watched enough of him and kind of have an idea, and also just try to put instances in where he hasn't seen. As far as me coming to set for him. I think that's a big thing for us. We can kind of create advantages, because keeping the defense on their heels, because he's so good. He can score 40 just by isolation basketball the whole night. But it's being able to make it easier for each other. Also being able to find spaces where you like to shoot from. Putting me on the right side, or putting him on the left side, or putting Karras on one side and K-Love right here. So that all goes into being a point guard. It also goes into being a leader and being a talented young player, which he is, and we're both trying to help each other out.
Donovan,
What's kind of the balance? Like you talked the other day about like helping one to help one another, and JB's seen that from you guys. What's the balance between like over helping each other, where it's where it's kind of detrimental?
Yeah, I think you look at it in a certain way where it's like you pass up what you normally do to try to make that. I think that's where you try to create that balance, but that only comes from a place where. A good place. It doesn't come from a bad place, which you'll take that conversely over the my turn, your turn. You know what I mean? But I think we kind of fell into that a little bit last game. We kind of got to a shot faking, trying to make that extra play when it's like no, like that's what you do. Like shoot that, and it's whether it's me, him, Bert, whoever it may be. Sometimes when you have a group that's so connected, so together, off the floor, on the floor, you can create. It can come out as passing up shots that or passing up looks or certain things where that might be the best shot in that possession, and that just comes with time. That's why we have these preseason games. That's why we have these practices. And like I said, the first game it was seamless. The second game it wasn't so seamless, and now we learn to move on to the third one because it's not always just going to be, it's not always just going to come and work. And that's what this is for, and just feeling it out, getting the film. Not playing against each other in practice, being able to see that, and it's a good problem to have, and we'll continue to build out and work on it.
JB said it was important too for you guys to see the level, the style of play last night that Philly brought, and the physicality.
Yeah.
What stood out to you about that, and then what you guys can take from that moving forward?
Yeah, that's the good old Houston Rockets is what I call it for me in the playoffs. My first 2 years, you look at James and PJ kind of leading that. Obviously Maxey was huge as well, but I'd look at James and PJ and D House. Those were the two guys my first 2 or 3 years who we saw every year in the playoffs. That's the style of basketball. PJ's at the 5, spacing it out, and trying to be physical. And I think the biggest thing when you have a team that like us who want to move the ball, get to the second side, a great way to try and take teams out of it is to be physical, to try and disrupt the movement. Because at the end of the day, we're so quick, we're so fast, but trying to use your force, your strength to kind of get us to start farther out, to force us into isolation basketball. And we hadn't, as a group, we hadn't seen that all training camp, so it's good to see that now in the preseason and understand ways to attack it. And they did a good job. I mean, like I said, they've been doing this since I've been in the league for at least 6 years and before that. So they did a great job raising their level. They're talented players. They're all NBA level players, and we just got to continue to build and work on it. It's nothing to get down on. There are lapses that we had, and we just got to go back and fix it.
A lot of teams nowadays, Donovan, are doing the switch-heavy approach, and I would assume that's what a lot of teams are probably going to do against you guys. What is the best way for you as a group to attack that, given that you do have so many good one-on-one players?
Using each other, playing in space as opposed to playing in crowds, continuous movement, throughout our actions, so I use an example. So if I'm getting the ball from the corner, now I'm swinging to the second side. I'm either going to chase it and play with the second side, or he can go play with the guy in the corner. But sprinting into your actions continuously, because it's like I don't want to use the football analogy, but like when you're up with somebody, like you're right here, everything's physical, everything's here. But once you back up, now they have to come to me. Now I have room to attack and get by. Now I have room to make a play, to create a set of pick and roll, slip a pick and roll. J.A. got a bunch of those. We're finding them up top. Now he's able to grab the ball and make a play on that and that stuff. So that's we got to it a few times, but like I said, this is our first time really going through it as a group. So I think now we see it. Now we can work on it in practice, because you can teach it all you want, but you have to physically go through it, physically see it, for us to start to build upon it. And like I said, it's what the preseason games are for. You learn, and now we go through practice and get the reps in and see. So when Coach J.B. saying, "Oh, we're doing this," it's because of that, and you understand where it's coming from.
I was talking to J.A. about this a little bit yesterday. Building pick and roll chemistry. In Utah, you and Rudy had it, obviously. How is it coming along with J.A., and how long do you think that process
It's going well. I think, it'll be quicker than mine and Rudy, because I was a rookie when Rudy and I first started, and then you look to where Rudy and I got last year. We were I think, number 1, number 2 pick and roll duo in the league. That's 6 years of repetition. Obviously, Jay and I don't have that, but, for me, I think it'll come easier because, one, I'm better than when I first started with Rudy. Like I'm not the same rookie coming in. I'll have an understanding of where things could be, but I also have an understanding of big setting pick and rolls. I think that's the biggest thing in my career where I've learned is not just knowing my position, but knowing ways that he can set screens and he can get out so he can get open. Understanding where he can be in positions to succeed. And you got to credit, playing alongside Rudy for that, being able to see it over and over. And Rudy Derek Favors are like the two that you kind of see. Sometimes it's the pocket pass, sometimes it's over. It's your foot angles, it's the area way you set a screen. And J.A. is fantastic at it, so it's not like, it's not going to be a hard process, and it's coming along really well. But there's also things of just understanding that when I go this way, that means this, and that way. That takes time. That's not going to just happen over a week or 2 weeks, but I think it's coming along very well.
What goes into that process, Donovan? Is it just reps?
Communication, reps and communication. So like, I don't want to say he's tired of me, but I pull him over to the side every second I can, because it's like, Jay, you may have this here, but you also may have that, so just be wary of that. So if I look at you like this one may mean that. And you just gotta keep going on and kind of over exaggerating it, to be honest, because like I said, I got traded 2.5, 3 weeks before camp started. So like I didn't have that head start. So now we're heading to the season, so now we kind of have to accelerate that. And I don't think it's been a problem. I think him and he's been receptive, and we both have, and continue to understand. And he's also said to me, hey, I think it'd be best if you pushed over to this side, so then I can say it. That way I can create a lane. Now I'm in the lane finishing or finding guys on the opposite side. So he sees things, I see things, we tell each other, and it's all about communication as well as reps.